Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Welcome back to the podcast, y'all. I am so excited that you're here today, and I am super excited for our guest. Her name is Rachel. She's from North Carolina, woot woot, and she's actually been a client of mine for over 2 years now, which is so wild. Yeah, and she just has an incredible story, an incredible journey, which she is obviously still on. We all are on this, a never-ending journey, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say today. She's a stay-at-home mom of 3. She's pursuing her passion, which we're going to talk about. And she just has a great story that she wants to share related to her mindset and her journey and just all these great things that we're going to dive right into. So welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm super glad that you're here and I'm excited to talk to you today. So I kind of gave a brief overview of where you're from, what you do. But if you want to kind of maybe give us a bit more details, we would love to hear them.
So I'm originally from New York. I've been in North Carolina for almost 10 years. I've been a stay-at-home mom for about 6 years since my youngest was born. And I have been just dedicating myself to that, but then kind of transitioning into what I want to do and what, fills my bucket. And I'm just continuing to find myself in this crazy world.
Absolutely. Yes. And I can't wait to get into how you've gone from really giving yourself so much to other people to also now starting to fill up your cup, your bucket, like you said. So I can't wait to dive in more with that. But kind of take us back even, Rachel, just a couple years ago and why you originally reached out to work with a plant-based dietitian, which was me.
Yeah. So that was really interesting because when I reached out to you the first time, you were not working with clients. So I was kind of like, oh, what a bummer. But I had just started my plant based journey and I knew and I had a clear vision of what I wanted to do. But I still had this void in me and this passion and need to lose weight. So when I reached out to you, that was my one and only focus. And lo and behold, life has taken different turns. My mindset has changed dramatically and it's been really great. But yeah, when I reached out to you, I was like, okay, so how can I lose weight in this lifestyle? Everyone is telling me different things. When I find myself doing things from my heart, it's really easy. But the internet, the TV, friends, and family are always bringing up things like, oh, well, all this carbs, this, and what are the food rules? What are we supposed to be doing? Is this really bad? Like, why are people telling me that eating potatoes are bad for you? That's not fair. So I just needed clear and concise answers from a dietitian. And when I saw, like, I looked up on Instagram, like plant-based dietitian, and I saw you were kind of local. So I was like, this is wonderful. So I was really excited to work with you.
Yeah. And it's been an incredible 2 years. It's been so much fun. And it's been so cool too, to watch you grow. Cause like you said, when you first reached out, it was a lot of like, okay, how can I cut through all this confusion of like, oh my gosh, potatoes are what bad for me now? And I'm eating too many carbs. It's like, a lot of this like diet culture mentality that we're surrounded by it. So it's hard to break free from that. And so what we did first was we sure as heck didn't focus on the number on the scale, did we?
No. And funny enough, I was so aggravated with you because of that. And I was like, well, why isn't she, focusing on that? It's really important. But when I went into it further, it had a lot to do with my mindset. And I was giving myself this big number and I was valuing what I was worth because of this number. And I was not comfortable with myself because of this number. Everything revolved around that number. It's been really difficult to kind of like let that go, but I finally let that go, and just our conversations over and over and just this consistency that we've had over the last 2 years have really helped me, find my worth and find myself in other things that are not related to weight.
Yes, and things that are beyond the scale that have nothing to do with that number that, like you said, you were focusing so much of your worth and your energy on. It was like everything was tied to this number on the scale. And I remember you being frustrated in the beginning, especially because
Mm,
we had to work really hard on breaking free from like a lot of this like diet culture mentality and kind of being tied to the scale. And I think it took maybe 8 or so months for you to, did you
yeah.
like sell your scale or throw it away? I can't remember what you did with it, but you did something with
I
it.
It was crazy because I had gotten this really expensive scale right like a few months before we started working together. And it was one of those things that connects to your iPhone. And I was like, well, I invested in this. Like, now this is going to have to help me, move forward. And when we started working together, you kept on asking me, well, why are you so focused on that? Why is it important to you? And just those inner things. And what you don't know is that even after our phone calls, those questions still kept coming into my head. And so I think we started working in May, and I think it took till like December.
Okay.
And in
Yeah.
December, I didn't even say anything. I didn't even think too much about it, but I was just like, I'm taking it out of my bathroom and I'm putting it away. And I gave it to my husband. I said, hide this. I don't want to see it. I want to find a different approach. So he just put it away, and I've not voluntarily got on other than being at the doctor's office.
So you had brought up mindset a couple times, and I think, and you've said this to me many times before, is just because you are being kind to yourself, just because your goals have sort of shifted away from the weight, doesn't mean that nutrition is thrown out the window and like you're just, eating anything and everything you want. Like your mindset has really shifted around, well, what is valuable in my life? What is my true why? Not what are other people telling me my why should be.
Right. In 2017, I watched this documentary, and it was about plant-based foods and how it changed some people's lives, and how eating the standard American diet was negatively affecting people. And I have been living with a chronic kidney disease since I was 26. So that was a really devastating diagnosis for me because one, I was so young, and two, I wasn't done having kids. So I had doctors telling me, you can't have kids anymore. If you have kids, you will get into dialysis and further bad things. And that was really scary. So I was on this journey of finding, and I really did the research, like what, from the time I was 26 in 2011 to the time that I found this documentary and found this lifestyle. And when I saw this documentary, I was like, well, I don't know what I'm watching. I'm very cautious of what I listen to. So I started doing my own research. And everything that I looked up and researched, I was matching up to what they were saying. I was already on this journey to help myself not progress my kidney disease. I just needed to have that lose weight factor. So I kind of already had the plant based diet already kind of figured out. And I brought that into my life, and it has been amazing. My kidneys have been in remission since then. The doctors have been marveled because I had pretty good pregnancies. Everything that they said did not come to fruition. And so I was just having these really good milestones. So I was just looking for that X factor, like, what am I missing? And so when I did my research and I looked into doctors like Dr. Greger, he's my all time favorite. I read the book, How Not to Die, front to back, and I saw how kidneys really don't do well on a meat censored diet, which was what I was living in. And I had no idea, like, this whole thing was foreign to me. So I continued on. And after that, I just wanted to lose the weight and just be this figure, this perfect model of, oh, look at this person. She is plant based, so she looks the part. And that was a lot of the reason why I was very obsessed with losing weight. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be a good example for everyone, not only for myself, but I didn't have the right mindset of thinking. So going forward with the weight, I was doing everything I could. I was working out 5 or 6 days a week, and I was eating pretty well. and the weight wasn't coming off. So that was what was really bothering me.
And like you said, you were kind of looking for that like solution, like what's that thing that I'm missing? And what have you come to find? Reflecting back on the past couple of years, what do you feel like maybe was missing?
I think for me, when I think about things too much or maybe obsess over things, I just go into this downward spiral. And I really need to catch myself when I do that, because when I follow my heart and I follow what I know, and I know a good bit, like I've been really into the research and into the science of it all, I do really well. But when I start obsessing with it, then that's when I don't do well. And it's just a lot about my mindset and trusting myself. That's a big thing. I have a hard time trusting myself.
Yeah, you've worked on that a lot over the last couple of years too, throughout this journey.
I have also been struggling with body acceptance. Not
Yeah.
struggling with it, but just coming into terms. Maybe this is who I am. I really had excellent numbers in terms of cholesterol. And I mean, because of my kidneys, I do have some blood pressure things that I'm working through, but that's my
Yeah.
kidney stuff. In terms of like my A1C, my cholesterol, people think the opposite when they look at me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've had excellent numbers when it comes to that. And so it's kind of a testament that what you see is not really what is this whole story, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because there's this huge misconception that when we look at someone, it's an automatic indicator of how healthy they are, which is
Mhm.
what we know is not true at all. You can look at a bigger body and think that they're unhealthy because of the way they look. Like that's what diet culture tells us, but that's not true. And then we might look at a smaller body and think, oh, well, they must be, the epitome of health. And that sure as heck is not true. Yeah,
No.
you had talked about kind of working through body acceptance. There's a great book out there called, I think there's one called More Than a Body, which we can put it in the show notes. And there's another one called Body Respect. And that is another one. If you want to dive
Ooh.
into more information for those of you who are listening, when it comes to how we look at a body and we automatically think, oh, then they must be healthy or they must not be healthy. Body Respect is a great book to break that mold, like shatter it. It's a really, really great book. So I highly recommend it to anyone, especially anyone struggling with body acceptance or health at every size. That is this, really just beautiful kind of movement sweeping through the nutrition world. It's yeah, worth listening or reading. One thing that I've seen you do, and one thing that you've said is you went from almost like being at war with your body, you're fighting against your body. You went plant-based, things were going really well. Like you said, your kidneys went into remission, like your labs are great, like so many great things there. But at the same time, there was still like this fight or this battle that was going on because again, you were focusing on that number on the scale.
Yeah. So I've had a really hard time accepting who I am, but that also has a lot to do with my upbringing. I was always told that I was always doing something wrong and I had to look a certain way. So I've always had a self-esteem issue, and that to me right now, especially now that I have a teenage daughter, that is not okay.
Mm.
And so I have had a lot of binging issues in the past. Things like I would go to like this local cupcake store and just grab these cupcakes that were really good and like having them all to myself for like a day or two. And now I look at those types of foods and I just know that they don't belong in my body. And so there was no willpower having to go into that. I just know that, well, they contain ingredients that I choose. That's something that I just don't desire anymore. Once I got over that, mainly when I went vegan, I still had an issue. Well, why don't I look a certain way? And I would get these questions at family events that would say, well, you don't have these foods. Why haven't you lost the weight? And I just didn't have an answer for them. I didn't know. I was working out vigorously. Like I was doing what I had to be doing, but I started to notice like, well, maybe this is who I am.
Mm.
And I have to start accepting that. And as long as I feel comfortable with myself, then whatever number on the scale doesn't matter. And so I like to focus more on the side of health and having that more cognizant in my mind, noticing things like, well, these types of food are not for me, but maybe more of these types of food. And a lot of people have issues with that. And so I've been really, really strong. I, I think about these things and I'm a very, very strong person. I have gone to events and I have just said, well, no, no, thank you. Or no, I'll find a salad or a fruit or whatever that I feel, fits in with what I choose to eat. And I have been very, very strong. And a lot of people have started to respect that about me and started to know, well, she's not going to have this, or it just comes to accepting myself and believing in this lifestyle and everything that I've come to research and read about. I've been really obsessed with looking up doctors and listening to podcasts mainly of scientists and doctors, and like I'm very, very aware of how I want my life to be and what I want that to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a beautiful thing. And I love that you highlighted that you're allowing yourself, like, you can choose to eat whatever food you want, but you just choose not to eat certain foods because, like you said, it doesn't really align with your core values or you as a human being anymore. And that might ruffle some feathers or make some other people uncomfortable when they know how you used to eat before and they're like, oh, wait a sec, now you're not eating that, or why are you eating that? So you get a lot of questions, but like you said, you've grown more confident and trusted yourself more even over these years of having to kind of be in these situations where you've answered questions or you've been challenged. And it's still not easy, but it sounds like you're kind of able to stand up for yourself more now than you have in the past because you believe in yourself and in this more.
Yes, it's crazy because I would have family who would say, Rachel, just eat this just today, just one day. It's not going to hurt you. And I'm like, no. And I even told someone in my family, I said, well, if I have this today, are you going to respect the person that I am? Are you going to feel that, oh, well, she's not taking that seriously? I am not going to have this. And I've stand my ground. I've also brought my own food, and they've come to also ask, well, what would you like me to make? Do you want me to set aside some of this potato salad and not put any mayo on it? And I'm like, yes, thank you. And they've started coming to realize, and this of course is my close family and friends that I associate with on a reasonable basis. But yeah, they've come to respect that this is who I am and I'm not going to change. And they still question it almost 4 years later. But they'll say, well, you don't eat meat, but you can eat fish. And I'm like, no. And I just hope that I can live a life in a way that will inspire people and that
Mhm.
they can see that, look, I am still this healthy person. I still look the same to you. This hasn't affected who I am. I just choose to eat differently.
One thing that you've told me before is that your why has really shifted over the past couple years too, which it sounds like that's part of what is helping you again kind of stand your ground or believe that this is the lifestyle for you, is your why has really shifted.
Yes. And I believe a lot of that has to do with my constant listening to doctors and reading books and like looking at proof over and over and over again. This for me, like I've been on diets my whole life
Mm,
and nothing has worked. But this to me is a lifestyle. But I also, I tell myself and I tell people I became vegan for health or plant based for health reasons. But now that I have been into this world, I can see enough of other areas where this benefits, including environmental aspects, animal welfare. And that is things like once you see it and once you know it, you can't go back. And so this is something that keeps me very, very grounded. And I feel like I know where I stand and I feel very, very firmly about it. I feel like a well planned plant based diet is very, very beneficial at all stages of life. It has been proven in scientific data and journals. I just love speaking about it and I love telling people and I love the conversation. So I invite anyone, if they have that conversation, to reach out. If they want to know more, to reach out. I'm not an expert, but I do know where I can guide them, you being one. So it's just one situation where this is one of my biggest, biggest passions in life.
And isn't it obvious to those of you who are listening that she is incredibly passionate about this? And of course, I can see her on video right now, and she's just lighting up talking about this. And I'm just like raising my hands, like keep going. So it's beautiful. Rachel, I'm curious. So we'll have you say where people can connect with you at the end of this, but if someone's listening and they're really resonating with what you're saying, what would you say if you could go back just a couple years and give yourself a piece of advice, or give someone advice who is listening and is resonating with what you're saying, or is in a similar situation? What would you say?
First of all, it's not an overnight thing. And I have steps that I think if I go back that I would give myself advice. And the first one is allow yourself to eat, because I've been on so many diets and like restricted myself so much. I have really hurt myself in the long run. And not only that, but one of my favorite things to learn about is the gut microbiome. And when you restrict these foods, your body is going to react a different way. And I now talk to my body as if it's a person. And I say, well, my body now doesn't trust me when I'm going to, it doesn't know when I will eat. And I really try to think of it as, someone who is looking for trust in me. And so I have to provide that for my body and give it food continuously, because I would skip meal in the past. And, really just allow myself to not think of food as the enemy, but as something of fuel for me to keep going, kind of like a car. That would be the first one. I think that's the biggest one for me, because as you know, throughout our whole time together, that's been one of my biggest challenges. If you really think about it, it's really profound.
It
If
is. Yeah.
people are like me, because this is not an overnight thing, this might be a really hard concept to kind of grasp. I would say, we did some journaling. You kind of helped guide me through some journaling in the past. And also, ask for support from friends or family if you can. But even if you can't, or people can't grasp this concept, I would really encourage some journaling, some writing down some gratitudes about why you're grateful. For someone like me who has gone through some really low lows, I'm very grateful when I can go outside and play with my kids or go and walk my dog. Those are some things that I think about, and I'm just really grateful, because even though they're so insignificant and we take it for granted every day, I am really grateful, because there were times where I couldn't manage not even a walk. That is something that I really, really think about, and I'm just really grateful. And I just tell my body, I'm like, thank you so much for allowing me to be this and for walking with me all day. And like I said, I treat it now like it's someone who deserves trust and attention and care, just like I would someone else. Find activities or things that you love to do. If you love to throw on loud music and dance, do that. Find ways to be happy and manage stress. And so I would say find those things that make you happy, make you smile, make you laugh, and really try to bring that together for just the sole purpose of being happy and not thinking too much about it. I'm really a big advocate for wellness because of everything I've been through. Just find foods that, nourish you and feed you, because you deserve wellness. And I think of my body like, okay, this is going to help fuel me through the day. This is going to drive me forward to the next activity. And you wouldn't drive a car without gas. So it's kind of the same concept with your body. Just make sure that you're eating some things that make you feel good. Another thing that I would say is know that you are uniquely you and you are enough, because that is something that I was never told when I was younger. And I've always had a hard time accepting. And so now that I look at myself in the mirror, I really tell myself the way I am is enough. The way I look is enough. The way I speak is enough. And just practice saying that to yourself, because once you get in the habit of saying that multiple times, you're going to start believing it. And so that is a really important part of it, even though it seems a little bit silly and hard to grasp, because I know a lot of things that made me insecure was just thinking that I just wasn't worthy. And now doing all these combined really have made a difference for me in my life. And like I said, this is not an overnight thing. This might be really hard to grasp. This might be something that would make you upset like it did me in the beginning. I didn't grasp this concept initially. So I would say just give it time. Definitely find ways to let these things out and just trust the process is what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Trusting the process. And two, I appreciate you being transparent that this is not an overnight thing. Like it wasn't just a switch that you flipped for yourself with your mind. This is something that's taken a lot of work, a lot of time, energy, effort, and it by no means hasn't been this like smooth sailing path that you've been on. Like there's been a lot of ups and
Absolutely.
downs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not perfect with everything. I still go through my roller coaster days, but for the most part, I really try to think of all these things and just find gratitude in moments, find happiness in moments and going through those practices that I just mentioned.
Yeah. And just to summarize what you said, I love that you started with giving yourself that time to trust your body, giving yourself like allowing yourself to eat, which can be a really hard concept to grasp. Like you said, if we've been on diets, for most of our life. So, sort of giving yourself permission to eat, trusting that your body is going to tell you when she's hungry, when she's full, and responding to that. And like you said, it by no means is it perfect, and we're still not perfect, and we're never going to be, but it's something that you
Right.
can definitely start to practice now if that's something that you want to do. And two, I think it's great that you brought in, it was a couple steps later, but just taking that time to recognize what foods make you feel good. So like you said, like it kind of took you a while to realize like eating a bunch of cupcakes at once, like it might have tasted really good in the moment, but when you really took the time to think about it, it almost made the situation worse because physically you didn't feel well. And then you would sort of like re-enter this guilt shame spiral with what you were doing. So now your relationship with food looks a lot different. If you want a freaking delicious vegan cupcake, you're going to have one and you're going to enjoy it.
Yes.
But this isn't something that you're maybe doing in secret or eating a bunch at once.
No.
Yeah. And
Right.
then with all that, Rachel, it's beautiful just saying that you are enough. Like this is something that I know that you, like you said, didn't hear a whole lot as a child. And it's something that you found along with the gratitudes piece that you had touched on earlier is really helpful. Like focusing on the gratitude piece. Like you said, like there were days when you couldn't even get out of bed. And now like going for a walk, you're like, wow, like my body's able to do this. I'm able to do this. And it's something so simple. But
Mhm.
when you can look at it through the lens of gratitude and gratefulness, like I'm actually able to do this, that can really start shifting your mindset. So, that in conjunction with telling yourself, I am worthy, I am enough over and over and over again can be really powerful.
Oh, yeah. And I did fight against it. But when I finally let that go, it started getting easier.
And that's exactly what'll happen. The more you start telling yourself that, like you said, there might be some resistance in the beginning, but you're going to start believing it because our thoughts, our beliefs really shape our reality. And so, like you said, you were almost like kind of forcing yourself to like create this reality for yourself that you had never really lived in before. And so you were starting to believe these
Absolutely.
thoughts that you were saying to yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So much good stuff. Okay, well, Rachel, I'm not going to let you go without you telling people what it is. So you've had this, I know you've had this passion for a really long time, and this year you finally stepped into it. Again, we talked at the beginning about how you're a mom of three and you give yourself to so many people, your family, your friends, and now you're starting to find ways to like fill your cup back up and do things that you're really passionate about. So tell us what you've been up to these past couple months.
Yes. So, of course, I'm not alone when I say this has been a hard year. And I think back in 2020, I would say around March, I had a plan and that didn't work out. So I spent the next year to the day focusing on my kids and making sure everyone's healthy and well and happy, that I started losing bits and bits and pieces of me because everything was shut down. The plan that I had last year did not work out. And so this year I started to think, I don't even know who I am sometimes. And I wanted to go back into a passion that I had before that I kind of lost track of. And I started going back into photography. I've always had a creative kind of side to me. And because of life and because of how things have worked out, I've kind of would start things and not finish it. And so this year I kind of was like, no, I'm going to spend some time on something for myself. So I started to do photography again. And because my passion is also vegan food, because if anyone is like me, I didn't know what vegan food was when I first became vegan in 2017. I just thought to myself, well, what do vegans eat? I don't know what this is about. So I had a passion to share with everyone, to take away that misconception of eating plant-based is not abundant. Like it's very restrictive. Like you can't have this or you can't have that. When in fact, I have eaten out of many different cuisines so much more now in my life than in all my 30 some odd years. And so I wanted to share that. And so I started this page, which I kind of did it as a hobby. And I would take pictures of my food and things I would make, which I have a passionate about. And I just took that to the next level. And so now I am studying to be a food photographer. And I have been having an amazing, amazing time with that. And I just want, really, my message is this is not as hard as it looks. And it's very accessible and it's very abundant. And it's a very fun, interesting lifestyle. I think plant-based cooking and vegan cooking is a very innovative way to cook. And I want to share that with everyone. And I want to show them, look, just as much as, you're eating these things, I can also eat these things, but with ingredients that I find acceptable for me. And I've been taking that and want to take that to the next level and hopefully to make a career out of that. And I'm so excited. And I've been really, really happy. It gives me something else to want to get up for and something else to get myself excited for. And I can't wait to see where it takes me. I think I started at a pretty good position. I'm still learning, but I think my photos are doing okay.
Oh, okay. She says they're doing okay. They're phenomenal and they are mouth watering. I told her because we live about an hour apart. I'm like, I'm coming over for dinner one of these days and like, I'm going to just bomb one of your photo shoots and be there and eat some of the food. So
Yes.
tell us where we can find you and follow you on this page specifically.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram on at my Vegalicious Kitchen, and I'm starting to show the behind the scenes of what I do, and also I'm hoping to go into some video later on, but right now I'm doing my studying. I actually got a scholarship to this food photography program online, and so I'm very, very excited to learn more and kind of get really good. And I'll be reaching out to some brands and hopefully working with teams of that and just continuing to spread the message that vegan cooking and plant-based cooking is absolutely amazing.
It is amazing. And Rachel like showcases that so beautifully in her photos. So I highly recommend go checking them out because she takes photos. She's doing more behind the scenes stuff. Like she said, she'll throw in some recipes every once in a while. She did like this lavender ice cream recently that was gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
It was like this beautiful purple, vibrant. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
definitely go check her
thanks.
out. Give her a follow. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for sharing your story. I know so many listeners can relate to where you're at, where you were at, and the struggles that you went through. And like you said, this is a never ending journey. Like you're continuing to invest time and energy into yourself and find new ways to fill up your cup. So thank you for just being so transparent about all that.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. And I just hope that my message is more of a helping people find their why and accepting themselves and knowing that they are enough.
All right, Rachel, it was so good to talk to you. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Until next time, keep thriving.